What is up guys, Irfan here and welcome to another video on the channel. This is another Dead by Daylight commentary, and in this video, because someone mentioned it in my stream yesterday about a killer guide, I always considered making them. I guess what we can do first to start off with my killer main being Trapper. Now, before we get into this, um, yes, there are a lot of variables that, I understand. For example, there are loads of different perks, loads of different add-ons, and also different map offerings which can kind of influence how any given killer can perform on a certain map. But in this this little series, I guess you could call it, what I aim to do is kind of give you an insight as to what the good and bad things are with said killer, and hopefully also demonstrate it via a game. So I took off all my perks and add-ons, so I guess we should go through the add-ons. We'll start with the common. So you have the Trapper Sack, Trapper Gloves, Strong Coil Spring, and Padded Jaws. Go through them briefly. Trapper Sack allows you to start with one extra bear trap and allow the transportation of an extra bear trap. Um, we have Trapper Gloves, which slightly increases the bear trap setting speed. Strong Coil Spring, which increases the disarm time for the trap, and also Padded Jaws, which is kind of a meme add-on, which does not inflict dying or damage on trap survivors, and you get 100 um, you get 100% blood points for trapping survivors. Very quickly to go over through them. Um, what this trap sack does in any bag add-on that I do talk about, um, you start with one extra bear trap. You actually start with one by default on Trapper. Trap sack allows you to start with another one, and so there'll be an extra one on the map, and allows you to carry two at a given time. Because without any sort of bag, you start with one trap and only can carry one at a time. Um, Trapper gloves slightly increase bear trap setting speed. It is what it is. Not the best add-on in my opinion. It is very basic. Um, with the trap setting speed is very quick. Again, with the disarm time, it's not the best, but not the worst either. And also Padded Jaws. I guess if you're going for some sort of meme build, you could use this if you want to farm blood points. However, there are much better add-ons. You'll notice a theme with any killer, and that theme being is that their lower rarity add-ons may, or the difference being between the lower rarity and the higher rarity is just that the effect that they give um, is more noticeable. So, for example, Trapper Bag compared to Trapper Sack, you start with one extra bear trap, but allows transportation of two extra bear traps. So, in terms of the differences between these two, um, this allows you to transport or be able to hold three or two at any given time. This allows you to carry three. So obviously Trapper Bag allows you to carry more traps, whereas the limit is three here, but only two with the Trapper Sack. But or the same thing being here is that you start a trial with two bear traps. Moderately increases bear trap setting speed for trap setters. Just an upgraded version of Trapper Gloves. Um, yeah, it's not too bad. Survivors caught in a bear trap suffer from hemorrhage status effect until healed. I'm gonna assume as well you guys have knowledge of what status effects are. But a brief overview: hemorrhage simply makes it so that you bleed more, which again, not the best, not the worst. I wouldn't really use this add-on. As you can tell, I have 591 of them. Logwood Die. Now, these die add-ons are some of my favorite for Trapper. Moderately darkens all bear traps, so you want to hide your traps, and Logwood Die will make it so that the traps are more difficult to be seen by the survivor. And also, Full Coil Spring Kit, which moderately increases the bear trap disarm time. So yeah, again, you're noticing a theme. Some add-ons are based off of lower rarity, but then just the effects that they give are much more severe. Moving on to the rares, we have a Wax Brick. So moderately reduces the chance of escaping a bear trap. As of this patch, which I believe is 5.1, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 26th of July, will go with that. Currently, the way Trapper works is if you get put in if you step in a trap, after 6 attempts, if you are guaranteed to get out of a bear trap, whereas if you use wax brick, it reduces the chance. So instead of going 6, I'm not exactly sure how many. I'd have to test it out once sometime. But it just reduces the chance of escaping a bear trap. Obviously, there's nothing more worse than walking over to a survivor that's stuck in a trap only for them to get out because they have good RNG. Tar Bottle considerably darkens all bear traps, which is upgraded of Logwood Dye, which again really good add-on dependent upon the map you're playing. Setting Tools, which considerably increases bear trap setting speed and moderately increases the rescue and escape time of bear traps. So yeah, obviously this is an upgrade from the trap setters, which only moderately increases speed this considerably. But you also have another effect which moderately increases the rescue and escape time of bear traps. There's an add-on which I will be talking about very soon, which basically inflicts dying on a survivor who's stuck in a bear trap and frees themselves. But without this add-on, it takes next to no time for a survivor to unfree or free up a trapped survivor by running over to them and interacting with it. So this just makes it take more time. Secondary Coil considerably increases the bear trap disarm time. Again, we're getting into the really good ones. Obviously, you could trap most survivors, and we'll get into counterplay and survivor strategies a little bit because it's kind of important when you play killer. But a lot of survivors will run away from loops if they see you set a trap like mid chase. That's how trap has gotten a little bit better in that regard. But yeah, this considerably increases the bear trap disarm time. So yeah, it's not too bad. Again, it does take a while. I've gone up against trappers using this add-on. It does take a while. Rusted Jaws. Survivors caught in a bear trap suffer from the Mangled status effect. Now, Mangled makes it so that survivors are healing for longer, which obviously is much more beneficial because if they're running something like self-care, or you're just having a survivor who wants to heal because they don't want to do anything injured, then Rusted Jaws will certainly help with that. Moving on to the very rares, we have Stitch Bag, we have Oily Coil, we have Honing Stone, and Fastening Tools. Stitch Bag obviously is the best bag add-on you can get. You start with 2 extra traps on your person and allows the transportation of the 2 extra bear traps. So like I mentioned at the beginning, Trapper without any bag add-ons or sack can only starts with 1 trap active on him and 1 that he can carry around at most at any given time. Stitch Bag allows you to have 2 extra traps, so you can carry a total of 3 from the beginning, and also, like I just mentioned, any other time you can pick up or have up to 3 traps on your person, which obviously, dependent upon the situation you're in, could be very beneficial. So, good add-on. I like running it. I don't run it as much because there are a couple of other add-ons that I do prefer, but yeah, it's definitely a good add-on. Oily Coil tremendously increases bear trap disarm time. Again, a decent add-on. I mentioned how good the secondary coil is. I'm pretty certain I've gone up against a trapper who double stacked Oily Coil and secondary coil. It did take a while. I don't know if they've changed it since, because you also have add-ons which for some killers will say the add-on effect stack, which means they work in conjunction. Whereas for Trapper, it doesn't really say that, but I'd have to give it a go sometime. But yeah, tremendously increases bear trap disarm time, which is again a nice add-on because as Trapper, which we'll get into games on playing him and like key things, Trapper suffers from initial or like basically Trapper gives people a chance to do generators whilst you set up, but we're getting to how to play Trapper and what you should and shouldn't do. So yeah, we'll get into that eventually. Honing Stone. This was the add-on I was referring to when talking about the setting tool. So inflicts dying upon the trapped victim if they free themselves. So what that's saying is if a survivor's in a bear trap and you have to press on your mouse to attempt to escape from a bear trap. If a survivor frees themselves from the trap, then they are put in the dying state, so you can just go over to them and pick them up and put them on a hook. Whereas if another survivor frees them, then that effect won't fall into motion. But again, good add-on because of the information it can give you. And then finally, for the very rare section, we have fastening tool. So tremendously increases the bear trap setting speed, considerably increases the rescue and escape time from bear traps, and moderately reduces the chance of escape from a bear trap. So obviously the parts of this would be increases bear trap setting speed and also reduces the chance of escaping a bear trap. Most killer add-ons do have like a counterbalance to make the add-ons not too overpowered, and for this it'd be considerably increases the rescue and escape time from bear traps. It doesn't take a long time anyways, but if you want like survivors to be stuck in traps and you don't want survivors running over to them and picking them out of traps whilst they're in front of you, then this is this is probably not the add-on for you. And finally we have the ultra rare section. So I'll talk about Bloody Coil first. When a trap is disarmed by a healthy survivor, the Bloody Coil exacts their price and that survivor becomes injured and slightly increases the bear trap disarm time. Again, really powerful add-on. As you know, with Trapper, without or disregarding any perks, he has to swing his weapon twice and gets you down that way, disregarding his traps also. But with Bloody Coil, if a survivor disarms a trap, then they go from healthy to injured, which obviously you're removing a health state, which is quite nice and can definitely end chases, especially if you're confident in your ability to get it down with Trapper. But this is my favorite add-on, Iridescent Stone. So every 30 seconds, one closed bear trap chosen at random becomes set. So yeah, there's many benefits to this add-on. If you set a trap in a spot you want for the rest of the game, even if they disarm it, survivors, even if the survivors disarm it, then it'll come back. Also, you could get some lucky RNG in terms of trap placements, and you can get some decent spots that you don't have to manually set. And I had a fair few of survivors getting trapped in iridescent stones traps that I haven't even placed myself. So yeah, and I guess I should touch over this blight theorem. This is an exclusive. What it basically did, you gain a charge of blight rush that replaces your killer power until it's consumed, and you gain an additional charge of blighted rush for every time you hook a survivor up to a maximum of 1 charge. And yeah, you can't attack unlike blight when he does his rush, but again, this isn't a blight video, this is a trap video. And the add-on may have unknown effects on certain killers and only playable during the Eternal Blight event. So again, you wouldn't have to worry about this. I'm not even sure if you can use it in a private match, but yeah, this is just an event thing. So yeah, those are my those are like run through the add-ons. If I had to go through some of the add-ons that I recommend, Iridescent Stone is great. Honing Stone, dependent upon the map, is great. Stitch Bag I would certainly use, especially if you're new to Trapper. Any of the bag add-ons really are pretty good. Tar Bottle as well. The dye and the bottle are really good. You know, if you have your traps in really hidden spots, and you know, they're darkened, it's going to be near enough impossible for a survivor to see it, and you could get some very good trap captures by just simply having the traps darkened, which is really good. But yeah, like I said, though, the bag, the sack, you know, they're all good add-ons. Even like the red rank trappers, they still use bags because it's that good. But yeah, so you have the bags, you have the dyes, and you also have Iridescent Stone, and you have the stones as well. Bloody Coil is an interesting one, although the only reason why I wouldn't say this is a good add-on is because if a survivor steps in a bear trap, and you're like able to get to them, then they are, then yeah, you can just pick them up, and you wouldn't even, or the Bloody Coil wouldn't exactly have an effect. So yeah, but if I had to give a rundown or pick my pair of favorites, it would definitely be Iridescent Stone and also the tar bottle. Moving on to killer perks. Now this is an interesting one. Again, I can make a separate video about perks. Um, but each killer and then perks work differently on them because killers have their own powers. So you can always hover over the power button. This is another thing, and you can read the um, description of the power. So a couple of things I've already mentioned. Um, one thing I didn't mention, or a couple of things I didn't mention from my power, sorry, is you can reset your trap. So if you don't have iridescent stone and you place a trap in a place you want it to be, but it's disarmed, you can just go over to it, and rather than collect the bear trap, you can just do M2 and you can reset the trap in its place. And also, if you just walk over to a trap and you don't want it to be there, you can also interact with it. And yeah, like it says at the bottom, by default, you may carry a maximum of one bear trap at any time, but that's disregarding any of the bag add-ons. So yeah, always read your killer's power because it can provide some useful information to you. But now we'll get on to the perk section. Now, as of this moment, there are a grand total of, let's see, you have 84 killer perks. Now, it would obviously take a while to go through each of these perks one by one. However, I will go through, I'll basically go through like what some good perks are, and if you're just starting off as Trapper, what you should be running on him. So also you can press M or F1 and you can view the killer's info, or you could just press this button instead. So this gives a bit of a backstory, also covers some stats, for example his base speed, his base terror radius, and height, which comes into effect at some loop. But the bit I want to focus your attention on is on this top right section here, which are his perks. So specifically, each killer and each survivor alike has 3 unique perks, which you have from the very beginning. So if you open up the game and just select Trapper, you'll have Unnerving Presence, Brutal Strength, and Agitation all at level 1, and you'd have to go through the Blood Web, which is basically the in-game progression system. And because I've leveled up my Trapper for a while, it's not really the best example, but you would level up the perks. For example, you may get like 4 perks on a level 50 Blood Web, and you may just want to upgrade them that way. So yeah, that's the rundown on perks, and that's how you basically get them to like higher tiers and more powerful. But yeah, we'll actually go through it. I'll actually bring up the perks. So Trapper's 3 perks are Unnerving, Brutal Strength, and Agitation. So yes, for his Unnerving Presence, what it does, your terror radius increases by 10%, or any survivor that's within your terror radius, sorry, they have a 10% greater chance of triggering skill checks when repairing or healing, and the skill check success zones are reduced by 60%. You have Brutal Strength, which allows you to destroy pallets, breakable walls, and generators 20% faster. And also Agitation, which increases your movement speed whilst carrying a survivor by 18%, and while transporting a body, your terror radius is increased by 12 meters. So I'll do a quick rundown of the perks. Unnerving Presence is only really good at, not specifically on Trapper, but it's only really a good perk either if you're playing Doctor, or for example, you're new to the game and survivors are new to the game, and Unnerving Presence will catch a lot of survivors off guard because the skill checks will be smaller and they'll give you more audio cues, which is why Unnerving Presence is not the best of perks, but it's kind of good if you're starting off. Brutal Strength allows you to, like I said, break and destroy stuff 20% faster, which although it doesn't sound like a lot, it is more noticeable. Again, a good perk for when you're starting off, because quite often survivors will just pre-drop pallets and just drop loads of pallets, and it's better to break the pallet, so Brutal Strength is a good perk for that. Also being able to break walls, which are basically on some maps you have breakable walls which can either open up loops or just cut the distance from loops to make them a little bit more unsafer. Brutal Strength is really good. Definitely, in my opinion, Trapper's best perk, and many killers can benefit from this. Agitation, again, not a bad perk, because and we'll go over this a bit in a video, or maybe as part of this video. I'm not sure. I might make gameplay for this video as like a separate kind of its own thing. But Agitation is a nice perk. For those of you guys who don't know, again, we'll touch over this quickly. Killers obviously have different speeds. For example, if Trapper's base speed is 4.6, if we hover over to someone like Nurse, for example, her movement speed or base speed is 3.8 meters per second. Go over to Hag, her speed is 4.4. So yeah, what that is basically saying is 4.6 meters per second. Trapper, you may hear something in regards to movement speed. If a killer has a max base speed of 4.6 meters per second, it means that their movement speed in general is 115%, which is important because survivors can only move at a maximum of 100% movement speed, disregarding perks and anything of the sort. So his max base speed is 4.6, but a key thing to note is when any killer is carrying a survivor, without agitation, their movement speed is 92%, which if a survivor is running beside you and they're trying to take hits to try and rescue this friend, without agitation, you're never going to be able to catch up to them. Whereas if you run agitation, whilst your terror radius is going to be increased by 12 meters, your movement speed will also go from 92% to 110%. So you're going to be moving faster than the survivors, and you can get hits on the survivors that way. So yeah, again, really good perk, although I would say that Brutal Strength is definitely the pick of the bunch from these three Trapper teachables. I'm going to quickly fill up some other perks though that are really good for Trapper in my opinion, and yeah, will buy you quite a bit of time, and yeah, so and I'll fill this up again because there are quite a few perks. I won't go through all of them, but Corrupt Intervention, this is a plague teachable. What this does is the 3 generators located furthest away from you when you start a trial are blocked for 120 seconds. So what that's saying is, instead of at the start of every trial having 7 generators on the map and none of them blocked, there still will be 7 generators on the map, but 3 will be blocked, meaning that survivors can only work on 4 of the 7 selected generators. The other added benefit of this perk is that usually survivors start further away from you in trials, so yeah, Corrupt Intervention will kind of give you an idea, not 100% of an idea of as to where a survivor will be, because you can get instances where survivors will spawn next to a non-corrupted gen, but this perk also grants Trapper time to set up a little bit, whereas if you don't have Corrupt Intervention and you're just walking around setting up traps, then you're basically allowing survivors to have run-of-the-mill and basically just rush you and not give you a chance to do anything in the game. So yeah, Barbecue and Chili is a cannibal perk, also known as Leatherface. Each time a survivor is hooked for the first time, you gain a 25% stackable bonus up to 100%, and the blood points are awarded post-trial. But also, any survivor who's 40 meters or more away, when you hook a survivor, you see their aura for 4 seconds. So again, a decent perk, can allow you to level up characters and get better perks and just give you much more information, which allows you to plot out what you want to do next, whether you use that information and decide to set up after seeing where everyone is, or if you want to go and chase a survivor into an area that's already booby trapped, then yeah, Barbecue and Chili will certainly help in that regard. I threw on Franklin's. the reason I threw this on is that it's generally a good perk again from Leatherface. Um, if you use your basic attack, um, what it'll do is any survivor that's carrying an item, once you use your basic attack on them, it'll drop their item, and if they don't pick it up within 90 seconds, then their items have basically lost all of its charges, which obviously it used to be a problem back in the day because Trapper used to have his traps disabled by toolboxes and sabotage. But it is a good perk for Trapper in my opinion because Trapper is an heavily M1 oriented killer, and it's not like he has an insta down power like a chainsaw or um, you know, a hatchet or whatever. So Franklin Demise will always see use. And also Hex Ruin, which is obviously you have two main sources of gen slowdown perks, which are the Ruin and Pop, but you also have some other ones which I will cover as well in this section. But this is the one I typically run with. I'll show you after going through some of the perks of what I some of my favorite perks to run. But what Ruin does is it automatically regresses a generator at 200% of normal regression speed once nobody is working on a gen. And if any survivor gets off a gen before it's completed, then it'll start regressing too. So again, I like running it, especially if I can hoard the survivors or herd the survivors into a death trap, and Ruin will just buy me time. I kind of just like running up to survivors and getting them off their gens. And Ruin, obviously, it's a hex perk, and hex perks can break. But yeah, Ruin is definitely the perk I would choose over Pop Goes the Weasel, and I'll explain why later. There are a couple of other perks that I want to go through as well, which are good for Trapper. Not Starstruck, say the best for last. But yeah, we'll go through Discordance first. So Discordance, any generator within a range of 128 meters that is being repaired by 2 or more survivors is marked by a yellow aura, and yeah, it just basically shows you when 2 or more survivors are working on a generator together. You know, Trapper suffers from setup time, so any sort of perk which can grant you the ability to kind of pinpoint where survivors are is a pretty good one to run, in my opinion. And you can see use out of Discord is from Legion, and a lot of these perks are from like different killers, which again you won't have access to them, but there's another way. If you don't have access to the DLCs, that you could get the perks, but again, I'll cover that later on. Make your choice, again, a good one. When a survivor makes a rescue whilst you're at least 32 meters away from the hook, make your choice applies to the survivor that did the unhooking, and it causes the survivor to scream and applies the exposed status effect for 60 seconds. The exposed status effect is basically an instant down, so if they're healthy and they get hit with exposed and they get hit once, they basically go from healthy to dying and also injured to dying, but it just basically eliminates the health state. Again, good practice for playing killer is going away from generators and or not going away from generators, sorry, going away from hooks, patrolling your generators. You know, if you hook a survivor, don't stay nearby. Go and kick a gen, for example, and then move on to the next area, because then you'll make your choice to activate, and then you can get a free down if you do come across that survivor within that 60-second time frame. Again, good perk for Trapper, to give him that much needed pressure, because he kind of loses it early game. Pop Goes the Weasel. This is the other perk I was talking about in correlation to Hex Ruin. So after hooking a survivor, the next generator you damage instantly loses 25% of its progress. Normal generator regression applies after the damage generator action, and Pop Goes the Weasel is active for 45 seconds after the survivor is hooked. Again, it's a really good killer perk. Before, I'm pretty certain this used to be bugged in the past, because it just used to take off 25%. Quick rundown of numbers. A solo gen, so one gen that's been worked on by one survivor takes 80 seconds, and 25% of that would be 20 seconds. But obviously, you're not kicking a gen when it's 100%, otherwise it'd be done. But say for example, your gen is at 80%, or it is a gen at 80%, and you apply pop, goes the weasel to it, so it's going to lose 25% of its progress. So instead of it being at 80%, it will go to 60%, because 25% of 80 is 20, so you knock off the 20%, and then it'll apply regular or normal regression after the generator is kicked. Again, it's a good perk for Trapper if you're able to get downs, and again, a good one because you could easily trap a survivor and then get Pop Goes the Weasel that way, and you know, all it would take is literally trapping a survivor, picking them up, putting them on the hook, rather than having to M1 them and all that good stuff. So yeah, a good one. And yeah, you could always kick the same generator over and over if it has progress. You can't kick a gen that has no progress though, and again, you can't kick a gen that's already completed. And finally, we have Save the Best for last. I'm gonna go through. Actually, there's one more perk I want to talk about, which is Whispers, but I'll talk about Save the Best for last first. So, you become obsessed with one survivor, and each token grants a stackable 5% decreased successful attack cooldown. You can earn up to 8 tokens. Hitting the obsession with your basic attack causes you to lose 2 tokens, but if you hit with a basic attack on a non-obsession, you'll actually gain a token. So again, really good perk for M1 killers and for Trapper alike, because you smack the survivor, and you know, a lot of survivors, and again, I'll go over strategy in probably another video, but what typically ends up happening is survivors will often just circle around you, and when you smack a survivor as killer, they actually gain a little sprint burst, providing they're, like, for example, healthy to injured, or injured to deep wounds for you know, borrowed time or insta heal stuff. But yeah, it actually cuts down a lot of time, and if survivors are cocky, you can get it down from it if you have a really large number of tokens. The good thing about this perk is that you can no longer gain tokens if your obsession is sacrificed or killed. So what that's saying is that if you can earn up to a maximum of 8 tokens, so if you have 8 tokens and then your obsession is dead, then those tokens are locked in place. So you'll always have like a 40% decreased successful attack cooldown, unless someone finds a way to make themselves or someone else the obsession even after your obsession dies, to which you can lose tokens again if you end up hitting your obsession. It's a really good perk, especially any number of stacks over 5. So 5 to 8, you really notice the difference. Even 4, you notice the difference. It's a really good perk. And obviously the nice thing is you can trap your obsession and pick them straight out of a trap, which would require you to lose no stacks. So if you have, again, you have 8 and you pick a survivor, or you pick your obsession out of a trap, and let's just say that they're dead, you're basically locked in game with 8 stacks unless someone becomes the obsession. So a really good perk. And last perk we will talk over is Whispers. So what Whispers does, and this is a general perk, if you wonder what, like, teachable, or like if a perk's a teachable perk or not, you can just hover over it. Like, for example, Thrilling Tremors is a Ghostface perk, so you'd have to level up Ghostface to whatever his teachable level is to get Thrilling Tremors, and then you'd have to learn it on Trapper, and this goes the same for all perks. But Whispers is a very rare perk. It's not specific to any killer, so you'll always have access to the perk in your blood webs the second you start leveling a character. But what this does is you have rudimentary understanding of the entity's voice. Sporadically hear the entity's whisper when standing within 32 meters range of a survivor. Again, this is probably a perk that I will talk about in the gameplay section, because I've seen a lot of people misuse this perk. The reason why, again, it's a good perk is it helps you in situations like the endgame collapse, you know, you don't want survivors being able to see you setting traps. So if whispers is not active, then you know no one's around, which you know doesn't always equate to survivors not seeing you place down a trap, but you know it always helps when um, uh, it always gives you peace of mind when you know that no one is, that someone may not be looking at you placing your trap, because nothing more annoying than having survivors be pesky and disarming your traps. So yeah, that's another good perk to have. Um, and basically, when whispers is active, you'll know because in the when you're in game in bottom right, the perk will light up. When a perk is not in use or whatever, the perk will be just not lit up, so you know it won't be in use if nobody's within 32 meters. Again, I will cover this perk a little bit more in depth because um, I've seen some misuse out of it, and yeah, it's like in I'd have to talk about it in killer gameplay because it kind of would fall under that. But in terms of the build that I typically use, I use barbecue and chili, brutal strength. I use hex rune as my choice of slowdown, and I also use save the best for last. Now, typically, if um, ruin and barbecue are usually a staple on most of my killer builds. The reason I like brutal strength is that just breaking through pallets, Trapper is very M1 heavy, so breaking through pallets will um, eventually, you know, you go from using traps at pallets and windows to just using pallets and windows, sorry, to using them as just windows and vaults. So that's why real strength is a really good one. Say the best for last, like I said, you can preserve your stacks if you manage to either save your obsession to last, or your obsession steps in a trap, and um, yeah, just basically screws them over. Um, but say the best for last and brutal strength can change from time to time. Um, One of the other things I like doing is, for example, agitation starstruck. Um, what starstruck does as a perk is, while carrying a survivor, any other survivors within your terror radius are frontally exposed to that effect for 30 seconds. The effect persists for 30 seconds on survivors who leave your terror radius, as well as those within the terror radius when you hook or release the carry survivor. And it has a cooldown of 60 seconds. But this is basically an insta down. Agitation basically stifles it even more, so it gives you a bigger terror radius. And yeah, just basically, um, you know, these perks work hand in hand. But I don't only do that a handful of times. I definitely prefer the or this build, but in the gameplay section, when I record it, I probably will go through a couple different builds so you guys can see, and I'll run through my approach and how I go around playing certain games and the certain way that I do. So last thing we'll also cover is a couple of the add-ons. These are event offerings. You can use these at any time you want. These just give you an extra amount of blood points. This was from the 4th year event. This was from the 3rd year, so this was a couple years ago. This cake is from the recent event. So yeah, you have your Moris as well. So Moris just grants the ability to kill survivors who have reached the second hook state by your hand. So if you have like a Mori daily, you can use these. Black Ward, you know, like it says, prevents the loss of your add-ons at the end of your trial. So basically, these add-ons up here, where you can get them on all killers. Cut Coin reduces the appearance of chests, which survivors can loot items from. You know, you have Mist, which thickens the mist. Oaks, which considerably decrease distance. And then you have like a bunch of add-ons which deal with blood points, bloody party streamers. Again, good to run with barbecue and chili because you'll get more points. You do have a couple of maps. Couple of maps that I like for Trapper. Obviously, his own map, Macmillan Estate, is really good. One that I actually like, and if you guys watched the previous video, you know, I really like Midwich. But yeah, always, I guess, if I had to recommend a couple of maps, it would be Mary's Letter and Macmillan Estate, 100%. Then you move on to add-ons, and then you have a couple here which, you know, you can force basement to spawn in a certain place. You can spawn a hatch in a certain place. You'd have to run through them, and yeah, again, these are event offerings which you can't use because the event is not going on for them, and also RPD badge, which it sends you to Raccoon City. However, there have been issues with the map, and you can't use them, but they hopefully will enable the map soon. But yeah, this is part one of the Trapper Guide. I will be likely recording a couple games with a couple of different builds to show you guys and explain my thought process. So yeah, in this section though, I just want to go through add-ons, offerings, perks, and yeah, we'll go in depth as to my thought process behind playing Trapper in the next video. So if you guys did enjoy and this video and you um, found what I told you to be of any use, just leave a comment. If you need me to clarify anything, because I know I can be very confusing at times. If you guys need me to clarify anything, then write comments and I will get back to you guys. I'll also post a couple of links in the description to social media. I do stream 3 to 4 times a week, usually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for sure. And I'll also throw a link to my Discord as well as my Twitter as well. So yeah, you can reach me if you ever need anything. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what I could do to improve videos in the future, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next part where we will play a couple games of Trapper.